Let's cross live now to Israel, where I'm joined by former IDF spokesperson and senior fellow at FDD, Jonathon Conricus. Jonathon, good to see you as always. Now, this has been the most incredible morning for Israelis. Can you tell us some of what the sentiment is like on the ground?
Well, good evening to you. It's magic. It's I think 2 years of suffering, of hardship, of frustration, of sorrow and grief. Finally, there's a collective moment to sigh, to joy, to cry, to laugh. And finally, our last 20 live hostages are finally home in Israel, which is a major milestone when it comes to the war between Israel and Hamas. That is now a strategic difference. No more will Hamas have that leverage over Israeli decision makers. No more will they be able to manipulate Israeli crowds and to torment Israeli families with videos of emancipated hostages suffering or digging their own graves or saying whatever written statement that they've been told. Now is a different situation, and Hamas has been forced to hand over their most important asset. So it's a very important day, very important ceasefire. I wouldn't call it a peace deal. I wouldn't call it a peace deal because we're not really there yet. If everything in the Trump plan is indeed implemented, then there's a good chance that this will lead to peace. But currently, it's a ceasefire, and we got our live hostages back, and they're working on getting the bodies of the murdered ones. So a great day.
And just on that point, Jonathon, let's bring in now, we're joined as well by a Deputy Foreign Minister in Israel, Sharri Markson. Sharri, let's bring you into our coverage tonight. Now, of course, you'll have to go the moment that the President Trump starts speaking to the Knesset. Can you tell us a bit about what these talks have been like between Trump and Netanyahu, the fact that Netanyahu will now be attending this peace summit in Egypt tomorrow?
I think it's just a testament for the very close relationship between Trump and Netanyahu. These are two leaders that have stood against an immense force of pressure internationally, economically, but they stood up by what's right. They are on the right side of history. And that closeness as friends is a testament for the close relationship between Israel and between the United States. I do apologize also in advance. I'm here at the General Assembly. We are waiting for President Trump to come in. We have here all the parliament members and many dignitaries who are here. We've been waiting for quite a while. And so as soon as President Trump will come in, I will have to finish the interviews.
No, of course. So I might just stick with you for a moment then, Sharri, before we go back to you, Jonathon. So, Sharri, you know, the hostages obviously have been released this morning. Can you tell us what you know about the condition, their medical condition, but also their mental state?
Well, this is going to take quite a while to actually assess. We know from other hostages that return back, you know, recovering from such a tragedy, from 2 years of torture, physically, emotionally, sexually, being starved, being really, I mean, on the verge of death, injured with such pain and suffering. Many of them, it will take years for recovery, if not an entire life. The post-traumatic stress that they would endure from something like that is immense. And we know from other hostages who came back, some of them after a few months, some of them only a year. You know, we're talking about 2 years that are already in a position where we know the recovery process is going to be extremely, extremely long. Our heart is with their family. We will try to give them as much privacy as possible to start that recovery process, and we need to respect their privacy too. But our entire nation is just celebrating. We really feel like we can finally breathe.
And, you know, I have to say we share that here in Australia, Sharri. Now we're looking on screen at some of these beautiful images released by the IDF in the past hour of the first set of 7 hostages who were released. And you can just see the joy on their faces to be in daylight in the arms and the care of the IDF after 2 years. Sharon, this was a difficult negotiation, but I want to ask you one other thing, Sharon. The narrative that's taking hold around the world is that Trump forced Netanyahu's hand on this. That's not true, is it?
Absolutely not. Sharri, for a few months now, Ron Dermer, which is Netanyahu's envoy, has been discussing, negotiating, and working together on building this plan. It's important to understand this plan will achieve the goals of the war through a diplomatic path. Israel always will choose a diplomatic path whenever we can reach it. Those goals were straight from the start. It's the return of all the hostages and the disarmament of Hamas. The fact that President Trump was able to put that peace plan on the table when not just Israel has accepted it fully, not one stage, two stage, but fully, the entire peace plan. The Arab countries completely accepted it. That's including Jordan and Egypt and Qatar and Turkey. Even the Palestinian Authority have accepted it. It shows you that there's an international consensus specifically about the second stage of the plan that talks about the disarmament of Hamas and that Hamas cannot have any future role, not from a military perspective and not from a civilian perspective. Unfortunately, though, we're not talking to rational leadership or sensible government. This is a terrorist organization. People who value death. It's a death cult that value death more than anything. They don't want peace and coexistence. They have indoctrinated an entire population in Gaza for 20 years, radicalizing, teaching them radical Islam, hatred, violence, murder. Trump, in his plan, speaks about the important issue, not about a slogan, not about a bureaucratic process, not an obsession of a two-state solution. He speaks about education. He speaks about an economy. He speaks about a path on how Israelis and Palestinians might be able to live side by side in the future.
But that's the difficult thing, and let's bring in Jonathon back in now. I mean, Jonathon, knowing about how deeply ingrained this ideology is, not among all Palestinians, of course not, but among Hamas and Hamas supporters, then how does even Trump's peace plan break that? You know, how do you stop the next generation of terrorists from wanting to wage war on Israel?
Yeah, when you look at, when you want to effect meaningful long-term change, then of course you have to look at institutions and mindset, and you have to look at education and religious services. And Gaza is a society that has been under the oppression of several organizations, specifically Hamas. But there's another organization which I think is familiar to Australians, but it's familiar in the wrong way, and Australians probably think good things of it, when in fact it is a very negative influence. And that organization is the UN Relief and Works Agency. Now, yes, exactly. Australians will hear this and say, well, the UN, that's probably the forces of good, right? Handing out aid and helping civilians and whatever. Well, actually, no. That organization is in charge of about 85–90% of the education in the Gaza Strip, and they have been poisoning the minds of Gazans for generations. They are the ones who have been brainwashing Palestinian children to believe that martyrdom is a sweet death, and that to die as a mujahid, as a holy warrior on quest to annihilate the Jews, is a benign thing. When Deputy Minister Haskell speaks about a death cult, that is what UNRWA schools, funded, amongst other things, with Australian taxpayer money, is educating Palestinians to do. So if we want a different Gaza in the future, in the next years, if we want a different trajectory for the region, then we have to address the rampant anti-Semitism, Israel hatred, and jihadi indoctrination in UN schools. If you ask me, UNRWA needs to be dismantled. It needs to be abolished and really cast aside. And only then can we speak about a different future for Gaza.